What's up, everyone? Mike Pantile here. Welcome to the channel. This has definitely been a long time coming. And so I had this whole process of wanting to have the perfect backdrop and equipment, for this channel and for this first video. But then I realized I was making a bit of a process out of it, and I was kind of delaying it. And then looking back at all the most meaningful, positive things that have ever happened to me in life and in business, it's been through imperfect action. So pardon me if this video is rough. Things are definitely going to evolve over time. So through the encouragement of my wife and a really close friend of mine, I'm finally getting this thing out there. So this video is going to mainly be an introduction and the reason why I'm here and doing this in the first place. So just to kind of get right into it, I was born and raised in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, the product of a single parent household. So I was raised mainly by my mother and my immigrant grandparents, grandfather and great grandmother mainly. And what a privilege it was to be raised by them. But growing up, I had a lot of the issues that come with not having a father. And so my father was never really there. He kind of treated me more like a friend. He was more focused on his own life and doing his own thing. And we no longer have a relationship to this day, and that's totally fine. I've reconciled that in my heart. I've reconciled that with God, and it's totally fine. But I had no shortage of issues as a result of this growing up. So a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, suicidal ideation, substance abuse early on, namely alcohol. I dropped out of high school in grade 10, and then by the grace of God and the patience from my mother, who in a lot of ways is my hero, I re-enrolled in an alternative program. And now looking back, this was such a pivotal moment in my life because these teachers were very much heroes to me. They saw potential in me, and they really gave me a sense of self-esteem in a way. They saw that what I was capable of, and I actually graduated with really good grades through that program. So I look back at those memories incredibly fondly. But there's always been this sort of me questioning, like, why am I here? What am I doing? What's my purpose? I was in a lot of, really meaningless, medium, long-term relationships. And the relationships would always go something like this. I would start off the relationship, the quote unquote, and I hate using alpha, beta, but just to illustrate a point, I'd start out the relationships, the alpha guy, and I would always get broken up with, and I'd end up being the beta simp, whatever you want to call it, guy at the end. Now looking back, obviously realize, not having that father figure, not having my life in order, all of these things led to those relationships and the demise, not to mention the premarital sex part, which I'll be getting into in further videos, but I don't want to get sidetracked too much. But I also realized, my whole perspective on relationships was completely wrong. And so just to take a sidebar conversation for a second, I grew up the chubby kid. And so this will make sense here in a moment. And so I had some natural athletic gifts and some natural athletic proclivities growing up, and never really fully realized them. So I became a mechanic, went to trade school, the whole bit, completely quit that because I hated my life doing that. And I started working front desk at the gym that I was training at the time. And so from there, I remember bulking up to 300 plus pounds. I got out of a really bad relationship, and I discovered the gym back in the winter of 2012, I believe. So it's been over 10 years I've been training now. And so I really fell in love with powerlifting early on. So I met a coach, bulked up to over 300 pounds. Like I said, I've always been chubby, but now I was like legitimately obese, overweight. And did a couple of powerlifting meets, and then quickly realized I was a very mediocre heavyweight powerlifter. And I was incredibly unhealthy. I couldn't walk for long periods of time. I couldn't walk a flight of stairs without being winded. And so blood pressure was through the roof. So I remember waking up one day, June 2014, I'll never forget, and wanting to make a change. So I bought a food scale, downloaded MyFitnessPal, learned how to track my macros, got 10,000 steps a day. I was already training. And so zoom ahead about a year and a half, I had lost over 100 pounds. So 110 pounds, went from like 306, 115 pounds, I guess, 306, 305-ish to 190 pounds, and capped off that weight loss with a photo shoot. That was a pivotal moment in my life. And like I said, I was working the front desk of this gym, became like a mini celebrity at that gym. People were knocking the door down, wanting to get advice from me on fitness and training and how I did it. And I was pretty strong in the gym as well. And this is where it all changed. So not only did I lose the weight, but I discovered the red pill along the way as well. And so it felt like I had been the guy wandering in the desert and finally stumbling upon water. And, I was like, oh my God, where has this been my whole life? Now looking back at it, not that all of the red pill is bad, but when you have a secular worldview and you're just looking at it from a biological perspective, it can be very harmful to you and to the people that you enter in relationships with. So now, being a baptized Christian, I can now apply this Christian worldview, this Christ-like worldview, to some of these principles and understand that, yeah, some of these things are positive, and some of these things you can certainly understand relational and sexual dynamics very well. But again, you have to apply the right worldview to it, otherwise it becomes quickly toxic. And so I didn't realize this at the time. I was a believer, but I was very much a lukewarm believer. So couple this red pill knowledge with being now the lean, jacked guy, I essentially pursued a life of just degeneracy and promiscuity. Got into some relationships here and there, but really I was just, quote unquote, like the world likes to tell young men to do, sowing my wild oats. And so sort of side by side from this, I got fired from this gym and started my own gym, and I had a partner at the time, and we were doing personal training out of this gym, and it quickly became successful. I was quickly making six figures as an early 20-something-year-old guy, and still own that gym to this day. I live in a different province, so I operate it remotely, but still, I've been in fitness, and I've been successful in fitness for almost a decade now. And so all these guys in the red pill space, and this is where it kind of leads to me, where I'm at now. I've skipped over a lot of stuff, but just for sake of brevity, because I don't want this to be insanely long, I lived that life of like the quote unquote high value man, the, sleeping with a bunch of women, making a bunch of money, being in really good shape, having this red pill perspective and knowing how to navigate these relationships. And I realized there was nothing there. There was nothing there. It was empty. And so I would find myself at the other end of these experiences, these flings with these women, feeling horrible, because not only was I hurting them, I was hurting myself. And now looking back, I had to be intoxicated or on drugs to, even engage in a lot of these quick flings. And so then I quickly realized I was being fed a complete lie. In fact, this almost completely ruined my relationship with my wife. I met my wife in early 2020. Amazing woman. She was already ahead in her walk with Christ and as a Christian, and that really intimidated me because I was seeing all these different women. I was living this quote unquote high value life when really it was a low value life, very much so. She saw through that. She saw the man that I was, the man that I am, for whatever reason, and she was very forthright in what she wanted. And so I knew, sitting down with her, I'm like, this is a woman I could really marry. She could be an amazing mother, amazing wife. All that stuff has come true, but at the time, I wasn't ready for it. I still wasn't ready to leave that life behind. So I remember a month into it, I broke up with her. Couldn't do it. Went on to destroy my life through more promiscuity, more substance abuse, more degeneracy, right? Because that was the high value life. I was taught this is what you do, right? When you're a young man, you sow your wild oats, when really that is just destruction. So I remember in July 2020, I reached out to my wife, not to reconcile with her at all. I had no intentions to do that at all. All I wanted to do was talk about the faith, because I didn't know anybody else that was a Christian. She was the only person that I knew that was a Christian, that was ahead in her faith and mature in her faith. So we met up and we talked about Christ. And again, I was not convinced I wanted to be back with her. This was purely a conversation about Jesus. And she wasn't convinced she wanted to be back with me either. We had kind of gone our separate ways. But for whatever reason, this talk about the faith blossomed into a beautiful friendship. And then 9 months later, we were married with our first child on the way. We had purchased a home and all this stuff. And it was amazing how quickly that all happened. And so just to kind of wrap this all up, as quickly as I can, as succinctly as I can, the reason for me being here is to finally put another voice against this red pill manosphere garbage. You see, the manosphere is now fragmenting. They're splitting off in every which way in different directions because the foundation is of nothing. The manosphere comes from pickup artistry and the red pill movement, although there are things that men could take away from this that are positive in how they can navigate relationships and how they can improve their own lives. There's not enough men applying the right worldview to this, the Christian worldview to this. So I could continue my story and talk about how I got baptized and I realized all these things. But again, I just wanted to put out this quick introduction. And so again, to summarize my reason for being here is that there are not a whole lot of guys speaking out against this stuff. There are a whole bunch of guys parroting this red pill manosphere stuff, talking about what it is to be high value alpha male and all of this. It's garbage. It's all garbage, because this is the thing, right? These guys don't understand, these young men don't understand that they're being fed a lie. That when, if they follow these principles to a T, they end up on their deathbed alone, right? Eventually, you're going to become a lower value man. You're going to age, your body's going to decay, you're going to have all this money, but you're not going to have any genuine love in your life. I've never met a man, an older man with a harem of women that's actually happy. Those men are miserable. But I've met many men that have children and grandchildren, a wife that loves them, that are happy men, that die with legacy. And so that's the point, is that, I have rejected degeneracy, embraced virtue in my profile and all my social media platforms, because that's what really this is about. We're seeing the red pill fragment, we're seeing the manosphere splinter apart, because when you base the foundation of a movement on degeneracy and fornication and promiscuity and materialism, basically worshiping yourself, worshiping oneself, it leads to nothing. It's destruction. And so the only thing that can withstand the weight of worship is the cross. And my hope is that with my message and with my sometimes over-the-top, boisterous, outspoken message, that it leads people to the altar. It leads people to repentance. I don't pretend to be the perfect Christian. I don't pretend to be the perfect man or perfect believer. I'm not. I got my flaws. I don't want to turn into a guru either. Okay? I want to turn into a person, a man that is a compass that points people to Christ. That is the whole point of this movement. This is why I'm here. This is why my voice is here. Because a lot of people see me, they see these tattoos, they see muscle, they see success, whatever. And I want everybody to realize I did all this stuff, the muscles and stuff. Like, obviously I love training, don't get me wrong. But the intention between that, the muscle, the success before, was a costume. It was a costume. It was trying to cover up all this insecurity, the shame, the self-esteem that I felt for so long. And what I really realized was that I needed Jesus more than I needed a costume. I needed my heart of stone to be turned into a heart of flesh, not to put on what I think a masculine man should look like or act like. Because quite frankly, there is no masculinity without Christ. And that's the whole point of this message. So it's been, I could rant and rave about this all day, but that's it. I just want to leave it there. This is the first video. I look forward to, adding value and coming across dudes sideways in this manosphere space and really injecting virtue in a world that I believe is truly fallen right now. And we need more men standing up and saying, this is what masculinity is. That's it. All right, guys. God bless.